Do wages keep up with inflation and productivity? That is the question we're asking today. And the short answer is most likely. It's almost certain that they do, and they really necessarily should economically, and I will explain why. That's actually the main part of the explanation I want to give. That will be the second half of the presentation. The first half is the charts and graphs that are usually presented showing that they're not, and an explanation for that. So, um, the issue with this topic and those charts and graphs, the graphs show, the graphs are usually presented by leftists showing that wages have not kept up with productivity, and or they might show haven't kept up with inflation. Productivity is the main one. So the argument is that wages used to keep up with productivity, and they don't currently or haven't recently until the last year or so, I think it is. Um, so it's a very tricky thing because you're dealing with inflation. You're dealing with prices over time. You have to adjust everything for inflation, and everything is affected by inflation. And so there are many discounting methods to do this with. I mean, you've got, first of all, the CPI or other inflation measurements, indexes, are not reliable. It's very difficult to produce. How do you get a basket of goods that represent all of our lives? What things do you put in that basket of goods to that you can keep up with? How do you adjust prices for changes in quality and I can't think of the other thing, but um, yeah, okay, just go with quality. Improvements in the good and so forth. How do you adjust for that, or do you? And the government has an incentive to understate inflation for many reasons, which should be obvious. So you can't trust the inflation indexes. Your knowledge of prices from your life and what you see on the grocery store shelf and the car lot and in the housing market is probably a better idea of inflation than the actual formal CPI. But you've got the CPI, then you have to discount the CPI with different deflators, such as the GDP deflator, or discount it with the inflation index, other inflation indexes. Then you've got to discount wages and productivity and so forth. So I believe using different indexes and types of deflators and so forth for wages and productivity and inflation are the main reason why um, it appears that wages do not keep track with productivity and inflation. There are two different, it's apples and oranges in terms of deflating the prices. And so there's a very interesting study and analysis by the George Mason Mercatus Center that has discussed this in detail and recalculated everything, justifying the deflators and the inflation indexes and so forth that it uses. And its results show that wages generally keep up with productivity. I will put that in the link below. But separately, they really should keep up with, well, I'm trying to think of where to go with this. Wages should actually formally not necessarily keep up with productivity. Why is that? Because if we didn't print money, this is where the conversation gets difficult. All of this is difficult because of inflation, which is purely a government money printing phenomenon. It's a monetary phenomenon. If we did not print money, if the quantity of money in the economy remained the same, then as productivity increased, prices would fall. This is what used to happen. Think about it. You have $100 of money buying 100 goods in the economy. If you increase the amount of goods in the economy from 100 to 200, what happens to prices? Well, you had $100 buying 100 goods. The average price per good was $1. If you now have $100 that has to purchase twice as many, 200 goods, what's the average price of goods in the economy? 50 cents. So with a constant quantity of money, as you increase the amount of goods produced, which is increasing productivity, then prices fall. But note, wages don't go higher if you have the same number of workers. And otherwise it would go lower, not higher. Well, no, I take it back. If you have fewer workers, wages would go higher. But so just assume the same quantity of workers. Wages will remain the same. Why? Because you still have the same $100 that has to buy everything in the economy, including workers. So wages and the quantity of workers remains the same. So the price of workers would remain the same. Wages would stay the same. As the supply of goods increase, the price per good will fall. So in a progressing economy without money printing, wages remain the same and everything that you buy gets cheaper. Everything, even if the supply of some goods don't. I won't get into that. Everything, in general, goods get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper because of the productivity. That doesn't mean wages go higher in real term in that economy. Wages remain the same. So, what happens with inflation? Well, with inflation, you have a wave of money coming and pushing everything higher in price. But that effect between the relationship between wages and prices remains. So wages would rise, but prices won't rise as fast because they have an increased supply. So in real terms, you still have an increase in real wages. You still have an increase in standards of living, even though you have inflation. So in a growing economy, if productivity is taking place, you have a growing economy, you're producing more goods and services than before, and you will still have the price of wages falling the price of goods falling relative to the price of wages. So you would still have, with inflation, wages rising to keep up with productivity, to reflect productivity. So even in an economy with inflation, if output is increasing, wages will increase. And they'll increase faster than the price of goods. And so in real terms, that means wages keep up with productivity. So there's no reason why, as long as productivity is increasing, wages would not keep going higher and keep up with that productivity. Forget the stupidity that employers are somehow holding down wages. It's so stupid, it's ridiculous. They don't and can't hold down wages. They have to compete for workers, and they have to pay market wages, and they all have the new and additional money that comes with inflation, so they pay more and more. for workers, just as they can't hold down the price of all the other goods they buy, the inputs, the supplies, the building materials, the input cost for whatever they're building. And just as we can't hold down prices of automobiles when we try to sell them, um, because there are market prices, you can't hold down the prices of wages. And if somebody tries, then other people are going to pay more, and workers will go to the people paying more, et cetera, et cetera. That's why wages rise in general. That's why they've risen for 100 and something years, because competition. So companies cannot reduce wages. It's ridiculous. They can't. They can't raise consumer prices. They can't increase the prices of what they're selling because there's competition. There's only so much money. People have only so much money to spend. They'll buy less if you raise the price. And if you raise the price, your competitors will have a lower price. Companies cannot raise the price of what they're selling. They can't reduce the price they pay workers. They're all market prices. So that is what happens with productivity and wages and inflation. And so, really, well, given that, I think the most important thing to say about this topic is the following. We wouldn't have to worry about all of this and debate whether wages are keeping up with productivity and have to adjust everything for inflation and all of this if we didn't print money. The whole problem here is the money printing, which causes the inflation. That's why you can't see what's what. That's why it's hard to figure out what you need to discount different things with and compare them and figure out what's keeping up with what. If you didn't print, if you didn't go and vote and support the government, both parties, and support the money printing, or if you would go and march in the streets over money printing as you do Donald Trump or whatever the right protests about, I can't even think what that is. But if you would quit supporting all of these politicians and all of your Congress that engages in money printing and raises prices, if you didn't have all of that, you would have what I explained in the beginning. You would have prices stay the same or go lower. As productivity increased, your wage would stay the same. It wouldn't go higher and it wouldn't go lower, but the price of everything you bought would go lower. That's all you would need to know. That shows whether the economy is growing, and that gets you your wage increase, your real wage increase by way of lower prices. So don't do anything to the economy. Don't money print. Let's produce. We'll increase the supply. Prices will fall. Then everything will be right before your eyes. You don't have to debate, analyze, etc. So that's the lesson. Let's let markets work. They work if you let them. And let's quit manipulating things, and then we'll see what's what, and we'll have greater increases in our standards of living. Something to think about. Thank you.